Welcome back to the Obvious Choice podcast. I'm Jonathan Goodman with Amber, and we have a special guest today, Lemee. Elise is fascinating to me. It was the weirdest thing, actually, because I saw your tweet. I don't think I was even following you at the time, and I have no idea why the algorithm gods decided to show me a tweet of yours back in June, which said that you were embarking on something you called your Summer of Yes. And I didn't respond, but I saved the tweet. Because it was a topic that I wanted to write about in my upcoming book, but I wasn't ready to start writing about it or researching it in earnest yet. So I saved it. And then I reached back out to you in August, and I asked you if you wanted to get on the phone to talk about it, what your impetus was. Why are you doing this crazy thing in New York City where you're just saying yes to everything that sounds expensive and scary and time consuming? And you, of course, said yes, that you would get on the phone because it was still the summer of yes. And, I mean, I think we spoke for 30 minutes or so, and at the end of it, I'm like, I'm fascinated by you. I want to go deeper into all these things, but I need to go, and I don't have my notebook, and I need to record this, and so will you come on my podcast? So here we are. Thank you so much for doing this. Yeah. Can you tell me, how it came about? Can we start there?
How the tweet came about?
How the Summer of Yes came about.
Yeah, I mean, we kind of went over it in the phone call a little bit, but long story short, I spent 4 months in Bali on a one-way ticket. I'm from New York City originally, and I thought that I was going to leave New York City and never come back.
Yeah.
And took a complete 180 from the life that I had known my entire life and moved there. And it was an experience. That's one way to put it. But I came back to the city. And the reason why I left, I can go into that in a little, but
yeah.
I came back to the city realizing that the answer to my dissatisfaction was me, and I hadn't been giving it a chance, hadn't been treating the city like somebody I could have a serious relationship with, and I think that involves saying yes and being open to everything that it can offer you. So I went in with this renewed sense of, let's see what you got, let's be open, and let's fall in love all over again.
Because you were born there. You were born in Brooklyn.
Yeah, that's correct. I was born in Brooklyn.
And so, for context, you were a freelance writer before this, right?
Yeah. So I've been freelance writing since 2020. I got my start on Twitter originally, out of all places. I never went to school for it, never had a professional degree, no relevant experience, entirely self-taught.
And so how did that, you said you got your start on Twitter, you were writing tweets and stuff for other people?
Kind of, yeah. That was a little bit of it. I started first originally writing on Medium in the summer of 2020 and was just publishing articles about things that were interesting to me, which was mostly multi-level marketing schemes and internet culture.
Okay.
Everybody has their niche, and through...
Super interesting, you kidding me?
Yeah, dude, I found out some crazy stuff, which we can go into in a second, but I was posting articles on there and then contacted a reporter at Mashable asking for her POV, any advice she had, and she said, if you really want to be in the writing world, you should be on Twitter. And I was like, oh,
interesting.
I don't want to be on Twitter. I don't want to be on Right. I have a very, I think everybody's relationship with social media is convoluted and love-hate relationship.
Yes.
And at the time I was already, on Instagram and Facebook or what have you. And I was just like, I don't want to add another platform to my circulation. But, if this reporter at Mashable is telling me to do this, I'm going to do it. And thank God for her, because it completely transformed my career. I was connecting with people first, just kind of posting to shoot the shit, and then I was attending copywriting seminars and just kind of writing takeaways about them. And then one day a thread of mine got 8 likes, and I was like, whoa, there's people here. And it just kind of snowballed from there, and thanks to the power of Twitter, I was able to make a decent income from freelance writing 3-4 months in with no experience.
Yeah, and it sounds like you had an opportunity to work with some interesting people. I saw that you worked with Miss Excel for a while.
Yes.
And how did that come about? Miss Excel, I don't know if you've ever seen those videos, Amber, but she was the one who just popped off. I mean, I'm not on TikTok, but I saw her on Instagram. She popped off, and she's just this really just, I don't know the right way to describe her. It's just joy. You just can't See, she's just dancing, she's being her goofy ass self, and she's just this Excel nerd. And so it's her dancing, and there's like Excel tutorials going up on the top to music, and she just popped off.
Yeah.
I mean, crazy, like as viral as you could go. And I think her business picked up too. And of course, her partner, if I'm not mistaken, was an expert in like online learning and digital course development. And so they did pretty well. So how did you get linked up with them?
Yeah, I know, right? It's all very serendipitous. I don't know if you know him, but there's a guy, Danny Miranda, who had a big podcast from 2020 to 2023, I want to say, and I met him in person, and he was like, I was like, Danny, I'm feeling like a little unmotivated. Who should I listen to from your podcast to feel good again? And he goes, oh my God, you have to listen to Kat Norton. She and I went to college together. You're going to love her energy. And
Oh, cool. Okay.
he was on the nose. I remember listening to her podcast, maybe like a December night, kind of walking around. And I left my house feeling so dark inside, and hearing her speak filled me with light again. She is just so positive and makes you feel like anything can happen. And I just loved her energy. And I think that's why a lot of people follow her, is because she makes a boring topic energizing. Because
Yeah.
she's such a delight.
And she's herself.
And
She's just,
herself.
yeah, she's goofy. She's happy-go-lucky. She knows she's a dork. Like, everything. It's great.
Absolutely. So how I ended up working with her, I was like, I don't know how that could even come together. That'd be cool, but I don't know. What ended up happening was I was just kind of emailing people around. I was specialized in kind of like the creator economy industry. There were some people who were spearheading a creator economy newsletter, and I was like, hey, like, I would love to get on board with this. What would that look like? And I kind of just got, connected through other people, and that's how I ended up meeting Josh Kaplan, who is the CEO of Smooth Media. These are people that, they used to work at Morning Brew, and then they started their own thing.
Okay.
And somehow Kat, Miss Excel, found Smooth Media and was like, I want to write a newsletter. Josh remembered me and was like, hey, we have a project that could be really interesting for you.
Oh, cool.
And that's how I ended up getting connected. And I've been helping write Kat's newsletter since July of 2022. So it's been 2 years now. And we're 340,000 subscribers strong, which is insane.
What I love about that is that you manufactured your own luck. I mean, it was lucky. There's no way that you could teach well what you just said. Like, you can't, there's no framework to that. And that's one commonality amongst these types of stories that I hear over and over and over again. It's like, you can always create a post narrative, and you can always smooth out the edges and create this kind of linear curve and build a framework around it that sounds nice. And some people are better at building frameworks than others. But the reality of it is the vast majority of any kind of success is actually just doing the stuff behind the scenes to get yourself in the right rooms, connected with the right people, where serendipity happens.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I mean, when you think about, this opportunity helping Miss Excel, like, she's awesome. And there would have been, I don't doubt, hundreds of writers that would have put in their shot at trying to get to work with her. And it was definitely, I was very lucky to have been at the right place at the right time, but it's just also a question of like who you know and putting yourself out there. I mean, I'm a big believer that every opportunity is attached to a person, and saying that you are self-made is not a flex.
Right.
It's everything you want is a matter of conversations. It's a matter of getting to know people. And if I hadn't just put my name in the ring, like, I wouldn't have just honestly like skipped the entire line. And that's one of the reasons why I moved back from Bali. It was like, in terms of my career, in terms of who I know, the crypto bros and the manifestation girlies, I love and respect them in their own lane, but that's just not the field I'm in. So for my best vested interest professionally,
Yeah, you were late in the digital nomad thing. I've been doing the digital nomad thing for 13 years now, and it's been funny to see the trajectory of like the types of people who I meet over the years, because it started out every single person was a life coach, And then they all became forex traders. They all traded currencies. And then they did Ethereum. And then they went and they traded NFTs. And now they're like crypto bros again / AI bros. And it's funny because it's all the same person. like the Venn diagram is a single dot. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. And like to the point where I actually know some people that literally have done every single one of those. It's like, wow, you're an expert in that this week. That's incredible. So it's really quite amazing, their ability to learn and master these new things. So, okay, let's go back to how you were feeling, because you grew up in Brooklyn. You love to surf, and you wanted to get out of Brooklyn, and you had this wanderlust where you wanted to explore and wander and travel. And you were about to go, correct me if I'm wrong in the timeline, but you met a guy, so you didn't quite go yet.
Yeah. I mean, he and I have known each other for a very long time, and the relationship was always based in New York. We grew up together, we went to the same middle school, same high school. When I think of the city, I think of this person.
Yeah.
Definitely.
And so you didn't quite leave yet?
No. I mean, essentially, I graduated from college and backpacked Asia for a while, came back to New York City and moved back in with my parents in August of 2019. And all I could think about was, okay, I need to get back out there as soon as possible. How am I going to do this? And while I was trying to figure that out, I met this person, and then the pandemic happened, and it was just not the time to move. And I also originally was pursuing a career in the music industry. I had an internship at a record label, and the only thought process behind that was, if I have to spend the next 40, 50 years of my life in a career, music is probably the most noble choice, which in hindsight is just a young 20-something who is completely has no idea what to do, you know? Right. So I was like, we're going into the office. I was, dating this person in New York. Then COVID happens. But it was an opportunity, and I'm very lucky that for me it was an illuminating moment, in the sense where I lost the job in the music industry. I was also bartending and working at a gym. So I'd wake up at 4 a.m. to open the gym. Then I'd go to the internship, and then I would bartend to 2 a.m. And I was just pulling these crazy days that make my back hurt just to think about it, honestly, as a 27-year-old woman today. And COVID slammed into the city, lost everything. But it was a chance to finally stop and breathe and ask, what is this for the path that I want to be going down? And the answer was, wasn't going to help me be remote. It was going to help me, go out there like I'd always wanted. So fortunately, when I stumbled on Medium, I realized that there was a career as a writer. And it didn't mean you just had to write books. You could do other things, and that was really appealing to me. Additionally, once you start a venture, a startup, being a creator, whatever, it takes a lot of time to get it off the ground. It takes discipline. And if you are living it up by the beach, while I love that for you, it's going to be really difficult to get any meaningful traction. So paired with all of those factors, my original plan of being in the city for a few months morphed into 4 years. Right. And that was when I kind of hit my breaking point. And
do you remember the moment? Do you remember that moment? What was that breaking point?
I mean, I think when it really came to a head, because, obviously the pandemic kind of raged for a year and a half before people started traveling a bit more frequently. And I was traveling at short stints. I'd go to, Colombia for 2 months. I'd go to Costa Rica for 3 weeks, but I'd always come back. I'd always come back for him, for us, for my family. And I went to Costa Rica in November of 2023, and I had this great time, and I came back, and I was walking through the streets of New York, and it was a beautiful sunny day. Yeah. And by all accounts, I should have been really happy to have been there. And I was, in a way, but the overarching feeling was, I don't want to be here. And I felt as though I was coming back for other people instead of me. And I remember going home and just really sitting with that. And I'm a big writer. I'm a big journaler. I journal since the age I was 6. And I was going through my journal entries from, 25, 24, 26. And they all said the same thing. It's just, they didn't change. My thoughts, my fears didn't change. I want to go. I don't know how. I'm scared. Do I stay? Do I go?
Yeah.
And that's kind of just when I realized, like, if I don't change something, my thoughts, nothing is going to change. I can't.
So you had been writing this, you had this feeling that there was a part of you that belonged somewhere else.
Yeah, definitely. Like, as if my life was happening somewhere else, somewhere far away, without me.
There's a line that you said to me when we first spoke that I wrote down, and then I went and read some of your articles that you wrote from that time. And it's repeated there. I think it was a little bit off of what I remember you saying, but basically the same thing. And you said, is love enough to compensate for me not becoming the person I wanted to be before this relationship?
Yeah, that was really tough to swallow, because the love that we're talking about here, like love of my life type thing. And for some people that's enough. People spend their whole lives looking for that kind of partnership, but if you've always had this idea of who you could be, and that person is only achievable as you being an individual unit, is love enough? Mm-hmm. And that's a question that has no right answer. It has no right answer. It's really up to you to decide,
So you decided the answer for you was no.
I decided that I just knew it was going to get worse. I just knew I couldn't accept it, because I tried. Yeah. I tried to compromise and do these short trips, and it was just not. I had to pull the trigger,
But you didn't just go, like you didn't just go to South or Central America. I mean, I go to Mexico, Mexico to New York. You can visit one another on the weekend. You can talk. It's an hour off, maybe 2 hours, depending on daylight savings, what time of the year. You went to Canggu in Bali.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the other side of the world. That's did you speak to this person when you were gone? That's not just a short hop. You know what I'm saying?
No.
I've been there. You don't talk to people from home when you're there.
It's fucking far. It was about 26 hours of flying, to the point where when you get there, you're still dizzy from being in a plane, that you just have to lie down the first few hours while you're there, and have one foot on the ground, one foot on the mattress, to not feel as though you have the spins. That's how far it is.
Oh, I mean, I know. I lived on Koh Phangan twice. I've done that. I've done the trip from Toronto to the island of Koh Phangan in Thailand 6 times, to and from. And it's about a 35-hour total trip. It's a flight to somewhere first in Asia, either Seoul or Tokyo or something, direct. And then to Bangkok, and then to Suratani, which is the small regional airport in Thailand. And then an hour, 2-hour bus, and then another hour ferry. I mean, I've slept in the Bangkok airport overnight. Multiple times. I know trips like that. You get there and it doesn't even seem real. You're just I don't understand what my body is right now. So I get it.
It's tough. But to answer your question, we did speak, because the irony was that we planned a trip to Japan in March, and I left for Bali in February. So we were not together, but still kind of together, which is arguably the worst place to be, because you can neither move on nor let go. So, would not recommend.
Yeah. But I wonder, I always wonder with situations like that, whether how important that time apart is for a relationship too. I mean, what is that saying? You can never really love until you've lost. I mean, my wife and I had that. We were together for about a year, more 10 months. And then I left. Yeah. I picked up, and what was it? It was would have been the end of 2011, maybe 2012. Mm. And I remember we were lying in bed, and I was telling her about this book that I wanted to write. I wanted to travel around the world and visit gyms and personal trainers and things like that, and basically do like an expose, like journalist type book about fitness around the world, and talk about, you know, all these experiences, and talk about how interesting it is, how different, but also how similar it is. And I was telling her about this, and she's like, oh, she was just finishing medical school. She's like, oh, but like, am I coming with you on this? I was like, no, I don't think so. She's like, oh, okay. I'm gonna leave then. And she did. I mean, she left that night, and we were split. And I ended up going to Hawaii for 6 months.
Wow.
By myself. I was on the North Shore of Oahu in a town called Laie, which I didn't know it at the time when I booked the room on Craigslist. This is how long ago this was. But it was, it's a Mormon town. So not only was I a single guy living by myself in the middle of nowhere with no transportation, and there's no like real bus system. There is a bus, but it's like, comes every 45 minutes, give or take 45 minutes. So it's not really a bus system. But I was in a Mormon town, so everybody that I'd meet, I was like, oh, there's this like really beautiful girl on the beach, and I'd go and speak to her, and she's just like not having it because she's Mormon and I'm not. No coffee shops, no bars, no nothing, because they don't, so there's no social anything other than the church. And I was by myself.
Really brutal.
And it is, but there's something that you said to me, and I want to talk to you more about it, because this is one of the pieces that I really wanted to hear more from you, and I saw a little bit of it in your writing from this time, but you spoke about how important it is to no, not how important it is. You spoke about how the disconnect between thinking that somebody else is going to make you whole,
yeah,
and the falsity in that type of thinking.
Yeah, I think I was inspired from this by Ava, who writes Book Bear Express. She has a great piece on heartbreak, or mostly crushes. How crushes are misplaced ambitions, and how we really just want them to be the answer to our dissatisfaction. And the fact of the matter is, at least in my case, was that I was dissatisfied during that period, not with him, not with anything else in my life other than just me. And to create that answer, it would have been unfair to have given up on that dream I had and pinned it on this person and said, okay, now that I've given up on this, you're going to be the answer to this thing that I'm feeling, which is not fair to him, it's not fair to me. And a lot of the times, people, they just think that if a situation was remedied, if they found that person, then they could, enter this euphoric state. But the reality is that people have their own shit to deal with, and they don't want to be, Elizabeth Gilbert has this great quote on this. They don't want to be like the scratching post for your unfulfilled yearnings, which is exactly how it manifests, doesn't it? Because
the scratching post for your unfulfilled yearnings.
Yes.
It's vivid.
I just imagine it. I'm pissed that I didn't get to do X, so I'm just gonna take it out on you, which is obviously very reductive, but the element of truth remains.
Yeah, this idea that people think a spouse or a partner or whatever it is will make you whole, but they don't want to be the one to make you whole. They want to be with you when you're whole and enjoy that.
They're just the
time.
cherry on top,
They're the cherry on top. That's what you said. Yeah. Nobody wants to make you feel, the cherry on top of the sundae. Yeah, that's what you said to me before I wrote that down. Yeah, and that's, so that time in Hawaii was that for me, right? It was me figuring my shit out. I mean, I was a personal trainer, and I was working 12, 13, 14 hours a day training clients, built this online side business. This is back before a lot of the social media stuff, but I had one of the bigger blogs in our space for a lot of years. And it was going pretty well at that time. I was making good money on the side, plus training, full client load. but I wasn't happy. And I wasn't fulfilled. And I had everything you would have thought that somebody would have in feeling those ways. And it was because I needed to kind of explore this other side of me. I needed to kind of like figure this shit out for myself. But the other part, of course, that happened was that I was surprised at how much I missed Allison. And I didn't think that I would as much. You know, it wasn't like it was 8 or 9 or 10 months. It wasn't like we were together for years before then. But that was a pretty strong signal. And it sounds like you and this person is similar, right? You had to develop separately.
Yeah.
It seems.
Definitely.
And then after 4 months in Kangoo, which sounds like it was a pretty difficult 4 months.
It was difficult at parts, but very illuminating in others. It was a multifaceted experience. Yeah.
So tell me about. Let's hear 1 and 1. What do you want to start with? An illuminating part or a difficult part? What's the first thing that comes to mind?
Okay. Question: the illuminating part and the not so illuminating part.
Yeah.
Well, It started, I mean, I'm not an idiot, you know, I braced for impact when I got there. I expected it to be hard. I just think I was in over my head of how difficult it could be. I went there, I didn't know anybody. I think I went in there very naive, knowing that we had separated, but not actually letting that thought sink in. And immediately upon my arrival, our communication changed, 12-hour time difference.
Yeah.
And all these rituals that people establish with their partners, good morning, good night, how are you, you know, disappeared overnight. And I didn't have my friends or family to talk to about it. And to just get smacked in the face with that reality was the type of pain that I don't think that if anybody goes through it, like, they know what I'm talking about. And those were the first 3 weeks there. Additionally, trying to find friends, community. Canggu is a very interesting place to live in, and I think Bali as a whole attracts a very particular kind of person.
Yeah.
And it's entirely different than what I'd been used to, and kind of integrating into that way of life was a challenge. I had to learn how to drive a scooter.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Which sounds silly, but you know, I didn't have any independence of where I wanted to go.
Oh, I crashed a scooter in Thailand with my pregnant wife on the back of it.
That is terrifying. I'm so glad she's okay.
She's okay and the baby was okay. Well,
Must have been.
The baby's 7 now. We'll see.
Wow.
No, the baby's good.
Yeah, well, thank God. Well, that's the thing, right? Like, you see people in Bali driving without helmets, with babies in the back, with pregnant women. Nobody's wearing helmets.
A friend of mine almost died in Bali. Very good friend of mine. UJ, you know, remember. He started, you know, the 5-minute journal? The gratitude journal, Elise? You ever seen that? So UJ's UJ and Alex created that. UJ's a good friend. And he almost died in Bali. We were together a week before in Ubud, and I had just left, and he got hit by a car, and like,
oh my God, did he go to the hospital?
He was basically saved by a local guy, local Indonesian guy, didn't speak English. He was unconscious on the ground. I mean, he doesn't really know what happened, but this guy effectively got him to the hospital.
Yeah.
Stabilized him. I mean, his hip was shattered every single way. Like, he didn't walk for months and months and months. You know, was able to get in touch with his parents and whatnot. So, yeah, I mean, that's scary. But it's terrifying. It's terrifying. But what the part about missing those little in-between rituals, the good mornings, even just I imagine, I mean, Toronto's like this. I imagine New York is this on steroids. Like just the people that you just say hi to or wave to or smile at, not because you know them, because you don't not know them. You see them all the time, and there's that recognition, and just how lonely it is to not have that after you've had that.
Yeah, definitely. Absolutely. I mean, you're stripped away from everything you've known. And I will say though, out of any place you could go to, one of the reasons why a lot of people come to Bali is because it's so Western. It
Yeah.
doesn't really feel like you're in Southeast Asia, which has implications of its own. But
I mean, Canggu is, and
Canggu is
Ubud is to a lesser extent, but like I spent a fair bit of time in Lombok and in Sangigi and the Gili Islands and stuff, and much less that,
yeah.
particularly Sangigi.
Hmm.
But I think Canggu for sure is like that. But like you said, like crystal energetic and, and crypto bros, basically.
Yeah, it's definitely, how do I even wrap my mind around this? I mean, you have people who come to Bali and this Bali has gotten so much press over the years for being a haven for the gurus and the yogis and the crypto bros, and that's not a joke. I mean, I would argue it's been exacerbated several times since. It's much worse now. I mean, every girl I knew was either an influencer or a life coach. Every guy I knew was involved in some vague practice. You don't know how people make money. It's very bizarre how people actually make money. I mean, I met a guy, I was like, people are like, do you want to like hang out all day? And I'm like, don't we have to work? Like, don't you have a job? Where there's this guy who worked, just at night, and he was like a day trader, and I'm like, how do you make money from this, or life coaches? I'm like, how?
Like who's hiring you?
So many people, I guess that's the thing. It's I'm not trying to discredit their business model at all. It's just interesting. You see people like OnlyFans managers. That's basically a pimp in the 21st century, but. See that, you see UGC creators. I mean, you see kids who.
What's UGC? Explain it to an old man, please.
User generated content. So
okay.
If you like, I would just take a product and then make a video and sell it back to the brand, and they could hire me for that. So I'm not an influencer. I'm just making content for them.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah. So. It's an eclectic way of life for sure. And then of course, you have people who move there and they're not actually trying to integrate with the place that they live in. I met people who would say things like, I hate it when the locals can't understand English, which is crazy, fucking crazy to say. Or things like, I met this Australian guy and he's like, oh yeah, I lived in Bali for 7 years. I got a business here. I have, Indonesian staff. I was like, that's really cool. I mean, so you speak Bahasa Indonesia pretty well, right? And he was like, I don't know any Bahasa Indonesia. And I'm like, that fucking sucks. Like, you suck. But anyways, that's a whole other can of worms. But
yeah, well, if you're gonna be there for a long time, you can decide. I think whether you want to integrate yourself in. I mean, you're talking to a guy who's lived in Spanish-speaking countries for a total of like 4 or 5 years of my life. I mean, Uruguay this will be my 5th, 6th winter in Mexico, to Dominican. I don't know, where else have I been, Amber? I don't remember. Probably a few other places. Yeah. And like, I speak Spanish reasonably well, like caveman Spanish, but certainly
you
not
can
as
get
well as
by
I
though.
should.
That's the difference. Is enough to find the bathroom at least.
Yeah, I can find a bathroom. I can navigate myself around. I can order in restaurants, but not as good as I should. I guess is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So, what was one of the really illuminating experiences you had? What was one of the really special experiences you had that helped you, call it become more whole? I don't know what a better way to say that is, but you know what I mean.
I mean, I think anybody who goes through a separation and who endures that type of pain, who is able to pick themselves up, because they have no choice, and to be the person who gets them out of bed, and to be the person who gets them to the gym, and who puts an effort into everyday tasks. I mean, you can't help but forge a really strong connection with that person. That person being yourself. But you have to learn how to self-soothe and realize that as long as you have yourself, you're never alone, you know? And so it was just these little tasks every day, doing what I needed to do to make sure I was taken care of, even though I honestly wanted to die inside. You can't help it, you know, when the clouds part, you look at that person in the mirror and think, wow, I love you. I'm so grateful for you. Thank you. Like, if I have you in my corner, there's nothing I can't do. And there's little things too, you know, like I learned how to drive. I learned how to take weekend trips. I made friends with people. I was very solitary, I'd say, most of the time, but that's kind of the way I wanted it to be, is just after being in a relationship that, you know, where our orbits revolved around each other, to just have something that was completely solo was beneficial. So yeah, it was just little moments, and anyone who's been through this kind of pain can tell you that at the end, they are closest to themselves than they've ever been, probably.
So at what point then, what was the moment where you're like, all right, it's time to come home?
Summer was approaching, because I had gotten there in February, and I just really missed home. I missed the streets of Brooklyn. I missed the food. I missed my friends. You know, I was telling you how finding connection with some people in Bali proved not difficult, but we were, I think, tuned into different frequencies. And there were people that I had met who were lovely, but, you know, didn't remember my name despite meeting me several times. People who didn't share the same humor as me, which again is totally fine. We're just different. And while you can be surrounded by people, to be loved is to be understood. And that includes with the basic things like knowing your name, knowing what you're going to laugh at, you know, the memes you could send to each other. And I just really missed my people. And, you know, it was also questions about asking myself, like, what am I really doing in Bali? You know, like, what is going on here that I cannot get from my life back at home? And
so what was that?
Well, that's kind of just revolves back to the summer of yes, isn't it? It's like, there's nothing you can't get in New York. You just haven't been trying. You just needed the excuse to be in a different environment, to give yourself that permission. And of course, there are fundamental differences. I mean, cost of living, for one. But it really is an attitude. And I felt like I'd grown so much that if I took this version of me and brought her to New York, then everything was going to be okay. And that's kind of what led to pull the trigger. But then, yeah, also just being more intentional about my presence in Bali, how it was impacting, you know, the island. If there was a chance, like, could I leave it better for me being here? Was I ready to fully integrate in a way that was contributing to the community and the people rather than just taking away from it, you know? Like, would I be willing to really build a life here in a way that is respectful? Would I be willing to be fluent in Bahasa Indonesia? Would I be willing to learn about the tradition, you know, customs and holidays and participate in those if given the chance?
Right.
Would I want to, you know, like, build land or buy land in a way that was responsible? And when it came down to it, I was simply not, my heart wasn't in building a home, a second home 10,000 miles away from the one that I grew up in. And with that, like, ethically, I didn't think that it was a good idea for me to stay in the long run. So, yeah.
There's this theme that I keep going back to, which is that, I mean, I'm not the first person to say this, certainly I'm not going to be the last, is that, you know, no matter who you are, no matter where you go, everybody is searching for something, but all roads are going to lead back to home. And oftentimes that home might be the very same home that they left with, or might have actually been the same home that they would have ended up in all along, but they wouldn't have appreciated it if they hadn't been along the journey. And
Yeah, exactly.
it sounds like your story is a little bit about that too. And I want to get to what happened then when you went back. I mean, my story is not dissimilar, although considerably longer. Maybe I just needed longer to figure it out. Although I brought Allison with me, and then, you know, she joined me, and our kids joined us as the years went on. And mother-in-law, like we travel on a convoy now. Like, we've got a nanny, we've got a mother-in-law, like 2 kids. I mean, we travel on a convoy. But it's interesting because we have a home in Toronto now. So for 6 years, I lived here in the summer. My girlfriend, now wife, and I lived here in the summer, and we rented a furnished condo, and I rented a car. And then we left in the winter, and we picked up our backpacks, and we handed back the keys to both, and we left. And we did that for 6 years. Like, I owned nothing. And when we finally decided to buy a home here, we rented a house in a few different neighborhoods. To see what it would be like living in those neighborhoods. Like, we thought that there might be a few neighborhoods to live in, right? And we rented a house in each one to see what it would be like living there for a few months. And what ended up with is we ended up buying a house, a 6-minute and 49-second walk from my parents, and a 7-minute and 20-second walk from my sister and her kids. And then I have a brother on each coast. I've got a brother in British Columbia and a brother in Nova Scotia. But and we love our house. We love our home. But as much as I've reflected on it, like, we could be in the exact same home in the exact same location, right around there. And this is not where I grew up. Like, my sister moved in this area first, then my parents, and then me. We could be in the exact same situation, and I had not explored for as long as I did. And lived as many different ways. I mean, I lived in the nicest mansions with the best sunset views ever, to literal caves, to pueblos, to everywhere in between. And I think the reason why I appreciate so much where we are now is because the grass is not greener anymore. Is because I'm able to. I was able to experience that, and I see that as such a problem with how, you know, my generation. I'm 38, so I'm farther along than you, but my generation was brought up, and I think generations are still brought up, which is just like, no, you want to settle down, you know, you want to get a good college education, you want to get a home, whatever, relatively young because it's good investments. Like, yeah, but you don't know shit about fuck yet. Like, you just don't know yet. Even if you got the exact same home as you were going to end up with 10 years from now after exploring for those 10 years, you wouldn't appreciate it. Even if all roads are going to lead you back to that home. So you get back to New York. And in my words that I've written in the book, which I haven't shown you yet because I haven't finished the chapter yet, I'm Amber knows I am mightily struggling with this chapter. But in my words, you returned to the same place you left from, but you were different, and you needed to figure out a way as a changed, evolved person to exist within your old world. Would you say that's correct?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, yeah, you put the nail in the hammer. Okay,
good. So I got that one sentence there, Amber. Now I got to figure out the rest of that. Of that chapter. The damn thing is killing me. I'll get it. I've been through this enough to know I'll get it. Writers understand. 3 stages of I'm a complete failure and what am I doing with my life for every piece of work. That's how writing works.
Absolutely.
What was the point where you're like, Summer of Yes? What was that impetus? Like, what was that moment where you're like, screw it, I'm gonna say yes to, I think you said 90% of everything that comes my way?
It's an interesting question. I wish I could tell you I was just showering and this beautiful epiphany materialized in my head, but honestly, I was getting a few invitations for things and I was just saying yes, and then was walking to one one afternoon in Williamsburg. It was like an entrepreneur
Yeah.
meetup event, and normally I would recoil at something with the name entrepreneur in it, but I was like,
Yes.
I'm gonna go. I'm saying yes. And then I was like, I guess technically you could say I'm doing a summer of yes. I like that idea. And tweeted about it last minute while I was leaving the office. And it just, the rest was history. So yeah, it wasn't anything like this huge, very serious thing. It was more playful in nature. Yeah.
Yeah, but that's fine. And then once you start saying yes to stuff and you go to stuff, more people start inviting you, right?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it also just primes your mind to look for those things, because yes doesn't need to be a formal invitation to an event. It can be something like getting coffee with someone over Zoom, or it could be just attending a new restaurant that you've never tried. It's really, I mean, honestly, if you pay attention, you could try so many different things every day. People are asking you yes or no. Things are asking you yes or no all the time. And if you look at it what it is, yes or no, you're going to realize that there's a lot at your disposal.
And so you told me about one experience, because, I mean, personally, this has served you, but professionally, this has served you too, from what you were talking to me about. You met somebody who led to a couple hundred email subscribers. What was that story?
Yeah. I went to the entrepreneur event, and I met some awesome people. One of them is Gabby Beckford, if I am remembering her name correctly. She's awesome, and we met for pho, and we had this awesome conversation. And Gabby is a content travel creator. She's generated hundreds of thousands of dollars for her business, to what she credits as just being delusional. And I love that idea, because honestly, I think most ventures in our life require a kernel of delusion to convince yourself that you're the person for the job. So wrote about her experience, about how she manifests things for herself in a way that's not woo-woo, but more so just putting things out there and not being afraid of people critiquing or trolls. And just her whole way of existing really inspired me, and it resonated with a lot of people. And I think when I posted that I had written this about her, I got 200 newsletter subscribers from that, and that was just awesome to see. It was a considerable jump, but
that's a really cool extension on this kind of philosophy, on this approach. Is, part of the summer of yes is you meet interesting people and do interesting things, producing content in some way around it. And mentioning those people and celebrating the people that you're meeting is actually a great way to build your own platform while you're doing it. I look at these types of things, this idea where you take this period where you're able to say yes to things. You can't do it, I mean, depending on limitations in somebody's life too. Obviously people with families and that might not be able to do a full summer. Might not even be able to do 30 days, might only be able to do half a day a week or half a day every 2 weeks or something, right? But I look at that and say, when you're in this period, it's going to be very, very hard to actively build something at the same time. But what a great use of time to almost prime the cannon, to build that platform underneath. It's like an in-between state. And I think of my life and my career trajectory of not like a constant steady up, every day I'm trying to get a little bit better. It actually happens more in jumps followed by steady states. And the steady states are priming me for the next jump. And it sounds like what you've kind of done here is, this summer you've almost been priming yourself, building connections and writing about these people that you're meeting and celebrating them because they're awesome. They should be celebrated, but also it kind of benefits you, because if somebody writes about me and says that I'm awesome, I'm probably going to share it to my platform, which is going to give them exposure. You know what I'm saying? So not a stupid thing. And then you prime yourself for the next jump up, which it sounds like you're doing. You're changing your business model, aren't you?
Yeah, I did write about how I started working with a business coach because something has got to change. And yeah, that was my biggest yes of all, actually. My most expensive yes as well. That's okay. I hadn't invested in myself or in my business in a really long time. And I think I was just waiting for the right thing to come up, and the stars aligned as they tend to do. Yeah.
And so do you think it will still be writing freelance, or what are you thinking? What are you wanting to build?
It's funny, I actually
because the freelance has an upper limit, like a pretty distinct upper limit. Like there's only even if you become more specialized and you can charge more for your hour, you're still going to be trading that time for the hour. It's like, okay, you can charge $100 an hour now, you can charge 130. It's like at the end of the day, there's still going to be an upper limit, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's definitely shifting. There's a limit to what you can charge. There's a limit to how much you can make. If, it's a saturated space, it's competitive. I love the clients that I work with. I'm super grateful to be with them, and I really enjoy the work that I do with them. But when it comes to, becoming known as a freelancer in the space, I'm not doing it. I'm not posting about that as much anymore. When it comes to being a quote unquote good freelancer, like I had somebody come to me with an assignment writing for the healthcare industry, which I'd never done before. And they asked, how much would I have to pay you to get you excited about this? And I was like, I don't know, maybe like $1,000. And I was really dreading it. I was like, I have never written about healthcare before. I have zero vested interest in this topic. And this person goes, I would pay you $1,500 to write about this. And by all accounts, I should have been like, this is amazing. Like, this could be a good byline. This will be extra money in my pocket. And I just couldn't bring myself to say yes. I was just like, I don't want to do this anymore, and respectfully declined. And it definitely, I'm in a very privileged position to be able to turn that down. And I think it really just boils down to having another kind of crisis, in the sense where when I had left the music industry and pivoted to writing, freelance writing, I'm having that again, where it's like, okay, what kind of writing specifically? And really what's more interesting to me is working with people and not so much brands, and helping them extract their knowledge and personality in a way that gets people to get lost in their writing instead of glance over it and not have anything that's AI generated or template-y. I want people to feel amazing when writing, and if I could somehow create that in a business model, that would be awesome. So that's what I'm working on with my coach right now.
Well, the really nice part is that the summer of Yes has really primed you. Whatever you figure out, you're going to have a big advantage tackling that new opportunity. Whatever it is, right? Because it's helped you build connections behind the scenes, but it's also helped you build the email list. It's also helped you build up, Twitter. I'm not on LinkedIn. Your website said LinkedIn, but I'm not on LinkedIn. But it helped you build up your Twitter following.
LinkedIn, and it also just exposes you to people who are doing incredible things. I mean, this is why it's so important to get out of your circle and do the networking. As dreadful as it sounds, it's difficult to imagine. It's difficult to imagine what you can't see. And if you see people who are killing it, who are just going for it, people who aren't much different than you, aren't much smarter than you, who are going out there, that's really fucking inspiring. And you benefit from feeling like the dumbest person in the room.
Yeah. I love that. Yeah. It's like, yo, this person's crushing it, but like, I think I'm smarter than them.
That's when you're in the wrong room. You want to go in there and be like, I have no idea what I'm doing here. I feel so out of my league. That's when you know you're in the right room.
I dig it. Well, Elise, I appreciate you so much coming on here and going in deeper into your journey. Some of the stuff we spoke about before, but it was fun to kind of dive deeper a bit. Where is Twitter the best place? Where do you want people to find you?
Honestly, I feel like I'm a LinkedIn girl now.
Yeah, go for it. Tell people. I don't know how LinkedIn works, but
I don't really know how it works
give your pitch about LinkedIn.
Look up my name, but it's complicated because it's spelled differently. Alice, A-L-I-S-T. Wait, A-L-I-C. I literally forgot how to spell that for a second. A-L-I-C-E, Lemee, L-E-M-E-E. That should be my profile.
I'll link it in the show notes.
There you go.
I literally had a brain aneurysm just now trying to spell.
Okay, I had to use the calculator to calculate my age the other day. You're fine.
You did?
I couldn't remember how old I was.
We're on the exact same wavelength.
All right. Well, thank you so much. This is Joy. Amber, we'll talk soon.
Okay.
Beautiful.
Bye.